Coronavirus canceled in-person voting just hours before the March 17th primary, creating the state's first mail-only election that ended April 28th. Concerns about what's ahead have convinced many that changes should be made to the usual election procedures for this fall's vote. After weeks of discussions, Statehouse correspondent Jo Ingles reports there are some glimpses being revealed about Ohio's November election, when a president, 16 members of Congress, the entire Ohio House, half the state Senate, and 2 Supreme Court justices will be elected.
28 days of early in-person voting beginning on October 6th will remain as one of 3 options Ohioans will have this fall under a new directive issued by Ohio's Republican Secretary of State. Voters will also be able to cast ballots by mail, as most Ohioans who voted in the primary had to do. And there are plans to ensure that those who want to vote in person on Election Day as usual can do that too. The directive has allowed local boards of elections to move some polling places if they cannot find enough workers to staff the current locations.
It takes over 35,000 Ohioans to staff those polling locations. And so if instead of 35,000, if we only had 20,000, well, then do the math. There's going to be a portion of those polling places that just simply will not be able to be open.
So LaRose says he wants local boards to survey poll workers now to find out who can and wants to work in November.
Once we know those numbers, if there's a need to move polling locations or consolidate polling locations, then we have to do it right now so that there's plenty of time to notify voters.
Wisconsin, Georgia, and Kentucky eliminated polling places on short notice, sometimes leaving only one polling location in a county. That created huge lines and led to concerns about voter suppression, and LaRose says that cannot happen in Ohio. Schools are being recommended as polling places instead of residential senior centers that have been used in the past because of the danger of COVID-19. LaRose is encouraging schools to close for the day and to allow older high schoolers to work the polls on Election Day. For Ohioans who want to vote by mail, LaRose says watch your mailbox around Labor Day.
And we are sending out 7.8 million absentee ballot requests so that every Ohioan will have one. You fill it out. A few months later, your ballot will be on the way.
LaRose is telling boards to have double the number of paper ballots and envelopes usually needed for an election. And LaRose says his directive also releases federal voting funds to local boards of elections.
It creates a simple process to get those dollars out to those county boards of elections, and then it provides them with a to-do list for what they should spend those dollars on. But then ultimately, that choice is up to the bipartisan county board of elections, and we try to give them maximum flexibility to make sure that they could do it right.
The head of the group representing Ohio's bipartisan boards of elections is happy about that.
That's going to be really important because obviously the need at the local level this year is very acute. We're going to have a lot of expenses that we've never had before. And so being able to really make sure we have the funds and resources available to hold a good election is super, super important this year.
But with memories of this spring primary lingering and uncertainty about coronavirus this fall, groups that advocate on behalf of voters say it's important to concentrate on early voting.
Our number one goal is to ensure that as many people as possible vote early or they vote absentee so that we can reduce lines on Election Day. We expect significant lines because we expect some polling location closures or consolidations, as well as a lack of poll workers. And so we have concerns.
The head of Ohio's Democratic Party, which sued the state over the sudden cancellation of in-person voting just hours before the March 17th primary, has concerns too. Though absentee ballot applications will be mailed to all registered voters in Ohio, David Pepper notes those who need to request a mail-in ballot have to go online to get the form to make that request by mail. Pepper thinks that process needs to be easier.
People should be able to send in their application online. I think that that's a no-brainer. It's happening in other states. Other states have made that change in the recent months. There's no reason Ohio shouldn't be doing the same thing.
LaRose says he wants to do that too, but says he must have the approval from Ohio lawmakers. There's a bill that would allow for online voter requests for applications, but lawmakers would have to pass it soon. Pepper contends LaRose could make that happen without them. And as for those who simply don't want to wait, requests can be sent in now for ballots that will be mailed out in early October. But that requires a printer, which many voters don't have. Jo Ingles, Statehouse News Bureau.